For the past couple of weeks, ever since Evo weekend, I have been messing with this. My first ever arcade fight stick. The Mayflash arcade stick F300 to be precise. And I have been, after being motivated by seeing people use this kind of peripheral at Evo, I've been trying it out for myself for the first time. I'm trying to get a feel for, trying to capture that same appreciation for it as more competitive fighting game players have. Just trying to get within that mindset and see what it could work for. And it's been an enjoyable experience. As you can see, I got some relevant stickers on it. Had to do the boy, and then also had to do that boy. What I've found personally for what I enjoy with it, or what feels really good with it, is basically anything Capcom. I've been doing a lot of Capcom Fighting Collection, and it just feels, there's a certain connection there, where just you feel like it's just a feeling of yes, this is the controller that the game was meant to be played on back in the day, or the arcade cabinets that had buttons like this, and it's recapturing that feeling, so it works, it's made for that. I've also done a little bit of Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and it feels good enough there. I've been meaning to do some Street Fighter vs. Tekken, I'm sure it'll work there as well, but just anything Capcom should be good. This layout is right up the alley, those games were built around that. And then the one that surprised me is Guilty Gear Strive as well, is one that really worked pretty well. The thing with that is Strive is basically just a 5-button layout, because you have the face buttons and then your R1 or RB that is for your more special stuff. And then it doesn't really use R2, L2, or L1 that I've noticed. So it's pretty easy to just place your hand on this and have access to 4 or 5 of the buttons at the same time, and then you don't need to move your hand around very much. So Strive works really well for that as well. As for what I don't really like it for, I think Mortal Kombat, the recent NetherRealm saga of Mortal Kombat, makes a little too much sense with a controller. Just the big off-putting thing is having R2 or RT to block in those games just doesn't work with this button layout for me, because my hand isn't naturally resting on it, so I don't always have access to that block button, and it's very important, as you can imagine. But just everything that's just holding back to block, this is a perfectly fine controller for. I did want to mention Soul Calibur. I did try some Soul Calibur, and that'll work fine too, with the A to block, or X to block, suddenly making sense, as that's just where my thumb is resting on this controller here. Tekken, I think I'm just a little too used to playing with a controller to find it really viable with this, but I am going to give it another try or two to see. I did also try Pokken on the Switch, and Pokken seemed viable with it. It was kind of fun. The thing with the Switch compatibility is it does automatically flip your face buttons to better match those, and I think I would prefer if I had one that just didn't do that, and then I can figure it out for myself. It's I know what the buttons are, they're labeled here, they don't need to be flipped. I think it would just work better if it just was the normal layout, and maybe there's a peripheral or a stick out there that doesn't do that, and that may be better. But and then the other thing is Killer Instinct, obviously. Killer Instinct, I do really like it with the Octa, but I could see the potential with it here. It was pretty nice to switch between low and medium attacks after your opener. That felt pretty nice. Just doing the combo breakers might be a little tricky with these great big buttons. I want to talk a little more about the feel of the buttons as well, because I've been made aware that these aren't the most high quality buttons you could have on a fight stick. They just kind of... The weird thing is the start button that's indented in here almost feels better to me than the actual buttons do. There's a slight difference in size, and it's just like, with the size of the start button, it just seems to like function the way it's supposed to, right? And then these are almost, like, coming from a controller, these are just almost comically huge, and they're just big enough that you could, like, press one side more than the other, and there just seems to be a lot of friction against the edges here. And so it just feels a little sloppy because of that. But there are better buttons out there, and these are at least the size of what you would put in to replace here. So if you know what you're doing, you can eventually replace this particular fight stick with better buttons and customizable buttons and stuff. It does have that capability. But I do actually love, some people may not like the size of this thing, but it's like a unit. I don't know, having to hold it like this, and it like fits comfortably like that. It's not too thin and it's not too thick that you can't hold like this, and then it doesn't go anywhere if you have it placed on a desk, or it's very, very stable, and I love it for that. I also like having it on my lap here, which you can't really see, but just lap here facing the TV. It's comfortable for that. It comes a little bit off of your lap. I feel like the height is pretty good. I'm not overly sloping down or sloping up. It's just kind of a natural position where I can just rest the very edge of my hand on the slope over here, and it's fairly comfortable. So I do like the height of that and the weight, and it all feels very stable, and I do like that much. So I've had a generally positive experience with an arcade stick. I'm realizing that the one that I have is fairly low end compared to how they can be sometimes, but there is the ability to customize it. I do just really like the versatility, which I'm coming to discover is a more common thing, where how they just work for most things except for PS5, because PS5 is special, I guess. I don't know. But so I got that one out of the way, but there is another type of fighting game controller peripheral that has been all the rage lately, and so after a bit of research and some money, a new challenger has appeared. So this is the Octa, the Hot 42 M16 hot pad. This is a leverless fight pad, or fight. I don't think it's a stick anymore because it's leverless. So instead of having the stick over here, it's like a WASD button layout. And this is the M16, so it has even additional buttons that we can hopefully customize. Because I did want to mention the one thing, I mean, this was important to me in figuring out what the common layout is for these buttons and trying to wrap my head around that and better understand that. And so I do appreciate that, but then in finding that out, I come to understand, or there's almost a yearning for, like, this button would be better if it was over here, just for my personal taste or something like that. Like, the big thing for me is I like to rest my hand. I don't know what the official way to rest your hands on these kinds of controllers is, but I like to rest my hand like this, generally with, like, the pinky off the button as well. So I have 3 of the 4 face buttons, and then I also have RB, which is good for a lot of specials. The problem with this is the B button is kind of down here out of the way, and that's an important face button in some games. And so I think it would make a lot of sense if these buttons were the face buttons, these 4. And so just stuff like that, it gets your mind going, gets a thought process working, and you kind of want to experiment a little bit and just see how other button layouts would go. And something like this gives you the opportunity to do that. There's also a lot of other customizable options with this. Generally, this does seem like a higher end option than my little Mayflash over here. The Mayflash was about 60, this is nearly 100, so I am going a little far for this one, but it does seem to be really, really cool and have a lot of stuff going for it. Aside from just the versatility, there's a whole lot more customization available with this, and you can just have so much fun with it. So we're going to start with an unboxing as usual. To get going here, try to angle it. Haha! Simple and clean is the way that you're making me feel tonight. Okay. Alright, the box was like surprisingly heavy when I grabbed it. Okay, it does have a little instruction booklet in there that we'll get to later, but little cushioned box there. Okay. This thing is sleek, but it's like all metal, so there's a very, very good weight to it. I was a little concerned about that because I don't want things... Because I kind of like this arcade stick because it doesn't feel flimsy. Like if I drop it, it'll probably be fine. This thing is sturdy. It is all metal, and then I've been waiting to try out these buttons. These... Oh, these buttons feel incredible. These feel amazing. So definitely higher quality stuff than what I'm used to with the fight stick over here. So as you can see, try to hold it in a way that makes sense. So you've got the normal 8-button layout right here. So normally what you would have over here is these three would be like your bottom keys, your ASD. So you'd have like down, left, and right. And then this would be your usual up, so it's meant to emulate like a spacebar jump button. But the customizability comes into play because you've got an extra button up here, so you could potentially have that as your up button, and then free these up for other stuff. There's also the potential of adding like the stick buttons, so clicking down on the left or right stick, as that can be an important button in some cases. So the extra buttons allow you to do that. I am not sure what all of this is for up here yet. But there is a little screen which you can apparently put like your own custom. You basically have that to show whatever you want, and then it also helps when you're changing LEDs and stuff, because this does have LED lights and everything like that. I'm looking forward to setting all that up. But oh my gosh. The weight is very nice. These buttons feel absolutely incredible. There's a little bit of resistance to them. Like if you press multiple ones at a time, you have to like try instead of these to just go down and have no resistance whatsoever. But it's kind of nice. That feels really, really good. Got a bit of a slope down in the front there for comfortability. And it's USB-C, and then much like the Mayflash, it has the USB port there, so you can plug in other controllers to get it to work on like PS4 and Xbox Series. That's what that needs. But yeah, I'm gonna have a lot of fun customizing this here. Let me see. I have a little. It's like a little keyboard shelf right here that I have been resting this arcade stick on, the Mayflash one. And the Mayflash one is tall enough that it can't go under, I can't like slide it back in. And even if like the base or the foundation of it was shorter, the stick would prevent me from doing that anyway. But this is very sleek and compact. Not only is it a fraction of the thickness, but it doesn't have that stick over it either, so it's very compact and easy, portable, easy to take with you anywhere. It's a little wobbly. It's not flat. Unless something is causing that on my desk here. Okay. That's a little discouraging, but a little discouraging. It does still have the plates on the bottom that are soft for gripping. And it is heavy enough that I don't think it's gonna move very much. At all. It's got a respectable weight to it. But it's very nice. God, these buttons. Oh, these buttons feel so good. If you don't want to shell out the money for one of these, just find someone who has one and just press the buttons, because oh my god. It's so nice. I really like them. Alright, well I'm gonna plug this thing in and see what the heck happens. Okay. Yeah, it's got a little... Yeah, okay. So this has a guide to the buttons as well, and it does look like it's going to do the same thing the Mayflash does, where it's going to automatically flip those buttons. A, B, and X and Y for the Switch. And then, oh. If I can. Okay, I'm trying to do it with one hand. Okay. I'm looking at the front page here where it gives you, like, the default layout for the buttons. So normally you can see it has a normal layout, and then I thought those two new bottom buttons were going to be left stick and right stick, but apparently left stick is at the top above the normal 8 buttons and right stick is below it. And then those additional buttons at the top, they also have those for that, and then for usual back, start, options, all that, and then there's the free M1 and M2 buttons, which we'll see about. Well, there's a web-based configuration application. Start it up by holding start when plugging controller into the PC. Okay. Alright, I'm gonna deal with that in a second, but oh, okay. So there's the little lip in the packaging right here where the cord is kept. That's pretty smart. And then what is this? Looks like some spare buttons and switches. Excellent. That's great. Really efficient packaging. Okay. Twist tie, my arch nemesis. Oh, that's like... That's even like an unusually fancy twist tie, I feel like. Interesting. Okay. Okay, so... swap these. And eventually I'm going to move the camera and stuff, but just for initial stuff here, I'm just going to have it right there. Eventually I'm going to have to put the fight stick somewhere else, but it's fine. Alright, so we're using the USB-C. Oh, it's going. Oh my gosh, look at that. Very cool. And it is an OLED screen. And it's showing the buttons up there. That's pretty nice. And the default RGB just appears to be cycling colors. If you can tell, it was just green. Yeah, that looks nice. I'm not sure why that green light is flashing up at the top. There's a lot to figure out with this. Like, there's a lot more expensive stuff, especially on like the fight stick end, and I'm sure there's more expensive leverless ones. There is a larger body version of basically the same thing too. There's a lot of variations, like based on size and like how many buttons you want. Like this is like, I think the highest amount of buttons for now, but they have like 13s, which just has like one extra button, or 12 is the standard for your 8 normal buttons, and then 4 for movement. And so anything above that would give you customizable options. Okay. I'm gonna have to switch things up here, see if I can start figuring out some stuff on the computer. Okay, so I have it plugged in. It mentioned a web configurator mode where you just have the start button plugged or held down as you plug it in, and then the screen shows different, showing it's a configurator mode, and then it gives you a website to go to, which is basically just formatted like an IP address, I believe, and then it gives you all this stuff. But then you can go to configuration here, custom LED theme. Enable. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. I like this. Okay, so what I would like to do, taking inspiration from just like the Xbox controller face buttons. Yeah! Do I need to slide this over? Why isn't this working? Okay, it's... there we go. Okay. Let's see, what would be a good color for... We basically have here, let's look at the templates here. Orange and then purple. Thinking since these are... Oh, that's so aggravating that it goes further down the screen and then I can't. Okay. 255, 255. Okay. That makes it easier. Okay. Thinking in like Killer Instinct terms, because those are like the shadow buttons, and then... Okay. Alright, this is generally good. I like that. Display configuration. Browse, so... Oh, this could be cool. Okay, hold on. So I'm trying to change the screen here to show something else. Okay, so once again it's saying save to restart your device. If it's in web config mode, it's not going to show the screen though. I saw it. I saw it for a second. How do I get it to... How do I get it to stay there though? It does not like rebooting more than once, I tell you that. But okay, I can switch back to the screen now. You can see down there I put my channel art, or my what I use for an icon more or less, and it transfers it to the tiny little LED screen here. And when it rebooted, I did see it. It would be on this screen over here. I did see it for a second, and then it switched back to the controller setup. But that is a fun little thing. I hope it's not just a just for booting it. Let's see. This is all just trial and error. I'm trying to figure it out here. Hardware. Okay. Other compatible display. I don't know what much of that means. Ah, here we go. Duration. I don't really see any point in the buttons staying on because they don't seem to be interactive in any way. Like they don't. It doesn't light up like which button I'm pressing, like some things on a piano keyboard would do. But okay, so let's try again. as controller. Okay, here we go. Look. Look at him. How cool is that? Just custom little LED screen and you can just put whatever you want on it. That is awesome. I love that. Okay. I got the LEDs the way that I want. So now let's go play some stuff. The first thing I noticed here real quick, so because you can see the camera when I'm choosing, this is obviously left and right. And then this is down, and then this should be up, which it is, and then this is also up. So it's kind of double bound to start with, which is pretty interesting. Although, if I recall correctly, at EVO you can't have things that are double bound on your fight pad, but I could be wrong about that. I want to try with Kai because he's the one that I just like have taken his moveset to heart and I just know it. Okay, so yeah, I can just hold left and right and just have neutral position, and then it's good for this, and then yeah, that the precise movement is just so nice. It's gonna be a little bit weird having that jump button down here. It's maybe gonna take some getting used to, because in PC games I actually like don't use space button jump very much, to be honest. Oh my god, look at that. Okay. And so this is what I wanted to test. So like, even though we don't have that diagonal movement, it's mimicking a full backwards roll like that, but just doing down and then back. So that allows us to do the special moves, which just, oh my god. Oh my god. This is this is a game changer. If you've like ever whiffed an input in a fighting game in your life, this is what you need. Cuz it's not like doing the whole like half circle or anything like that with a control stick or a joystick anymore. It's just pressing the buttons. There's no chance for error. So like doing a full backwards half circle and then forward is that simple. That's crazy. Alright, some additional PC testing with Capcom Fighting Collection. We've got Vampire Savior 1 in here. Where is my... okay. It's a little tricky moving in here with the diagonal. Okay. Or maybe not. Okay. No. The joystick movement did feel kind of good in this before. It just felt right, but just... I don't know. This is just... there's just no margin for error with this control setup. Just having a giant D-pad and it does the diagonals for you if you just move. Oh, it's so nice. Very nice. I'm sorry I'm not talking much during this. It just feels so natural. Oh, how did I do that? I don't even know how I did that. How did I do the nunchucks? I would very much like to know. Oh. There you go. Okay. So it's a back roll. Yeah, it's showing my input over there. Back roll and medium punch. And then doing forward with light is apparently just the input for that. Very cool. God, it's just, oh man. It's a, it's a game-changing feeling. There's just, again, if you've ever whiffed an input, there's like no way to do that with this unless you just press the wrong button. That's all you can do. It's an incredible feeling, and these buttons just feel so good to press. They're so responsive. They're not the loudest thing on the face of the earth. Like compared to the Mayflash fight stick, they're actually pretty quiet, I would say. But just, it feels incredible. Incredible. So I've since recording last, I've played some legitimate matches with this in PvP and stuff, and something I noticed while I was playing, let me see if I can replicate it, is if you do the inputs really, really fast. Yeah, right there. Yeah. Okay, so generally you can tell the accuracy is very good, but every now and then, yeah, every now and then it misses that diagonal to make it the full half circle. So you just need to be very careful about your input sometimes, because if you do it a little too fast or the timing's just like a teeny bit off sometimes, you can miss that. Yeah, see, that time it missed the absolute bottom of it. And so some accuracy is definitely lost for the sake of speed here, but I mean, generally it is pretty good. But just every now and then the input is getting whiffed. And this isn't an issue until you're trying to do like a full half circle. In cases like this, if you're doing like... I was forward, okay. Yeah, if you're trying to do like the quarter circle, it's completely accurate all the time. So, just every now and then some of the more complicated moves are going to be a problem, but let's see if it... Yeah. Yeah, some of the more complicated stuff, there's maybe a teeny bit of accuracy lost if you have to do a half circle or something like that. But for the most part, it's still a very, very reliable controller, and I do just still absolutely adore these buttons. They just feel really, really good and sound really, really good. It's kind of like how I wish the buttons felt on my arcade stick over there. These just feel incredible. A couple of drawbacks I'm noticing, or starting to notice with this M16 though. For one thing, right out of the gate, right out of the packaging, it doesn't quite have the console or the platform versatility as the Mayflash does. It's still great for PC. Supposedly has PS3, PS4, and Switch compatibility, but it doesn't seem to have that whole controller pass-through option like the Mayflash one does. So I don't think compatibility is as good for PS4, and it's kind of out of the question right out of the packaging for an Xbox. I don't think it has any Xbox support at all. Whereas the Mayflash, I think you can just plug it right into a Xbox 360 or Xbox One, and then you do the controller pass through for Series. I don't think you can do anything Xbox with this right out of the gate. But they do have those adapter dongles that they make that you can just plug right into these to fix that, but it is just an additional purchase to keep in mind. You would need it for PS5 for both of them anyway, so that's just something to consider. And then also the cord is a whole lot shorter, but I mean anything that's USB-C to normal USB should work out for you, so maybe you have another one of those lying around. But just something to keep in mind as well. This is a little short. I was concerned about feeding it over to my Xbox, which is just right over there. Whereas the Mayflash cord is really, really long, and I love that. Although it does, just having it at my desk here, it does drag to the floor on the side here, whereas this one I'm able to just tuck in right under. So if a shorter cord works for you, then this one is a little shorter. And then another thing is that I'm not really comfortable putting this on my lap and using it there. It doesn't really have the width that makes it comfortable. At least for me, I have to keep my legs like really close together, and like I'm worried about it like falling through my legs. You could potentially put it on one leg, and then like your hand positioning would prevent it from falling to either side, but I don't know. I'm not really comfortable with that. This is more of like a table or shelf setup, as opposed to just having it on your lap. I do think the Mayflash works a little bit better for that, but it is very like stable. It's made of like hefty, high quality material. Like if this thing fell, I think it would probably be okay. But I'm still not sure I want to risk it because it is a fairly reasonable. It is a respectable amount of money. So just keep that in mind. And so we have the Mayflash Fight Stick. We have a Leverless. We have the sweet, sweet Fighting Commander Octa with its glorious micro switches. And we have a regular controller. So the big question is, which one is the best for fighting games? So, which is the best? Well, it may come as a surprise to you to hear this, but it's all a matter of your own personal preference. See, if, say, there was a point in your life where you played things in an arcade and are used to that arcade stick layout, then it's going to make a lot of sense for you to go to that arcade stick and play games that way. You're going to feel right at home there. On the other hand, if you've been playing games with a controller all your life and randomly decide to pick up the arcade stick, it might not be as practical a choice for you to just basically completely learn a completely different way to play games if you're completely comfortable with the same method that you've been using this whole time. Are there pros and cons to deciding to do that? Yes, but there's also an advantage to playing a game the way you're the most comfortable playing it. So you don't need to necessarily go out of your comfort zone to use a different method if you don't want to. But if you want to know my personal preference, we can go through a little bit here. So for the arcade fight stick here, my Mayflash, for this I would use for basically anything Capcom. The older the better, because it just really feels right where you're playing those games the way they were meant to be played, like originally in those arcades. Any 2D games are generally pretty good for this, with that joystick movement. It starts to feel a little bit weird to me in 3D motion. I did try stuff like Pokken Tournament with it, and the like 3D Arena Fighter camera angle, it felt like very strange moving it that way. It could just be that specific camera angle of 3D Arena Fighters, and maybe normal movement wouldn't feel as weird, but further testing could do that. With some games, though, the button layout is a bit of a deterrent for me to use these. There are some other controller methods that I'll get to that feel a little bit better with those controller layouts and feel better for them. But again, the Capcom stuff really feels well suited to these. And just something that takes getting used to as well was just like the stick. It just kind of gives that same validity to your inputs as like using a control stick would instead of a D-pad, where you're like, I think this is directly down, but you don't have like that 100% satisfaction that like what you're picking is correct with like a D-pad or a leverless. So it's just something to keep in mind there. Now for my leverless, this I've decked it out a little bit since the video and will continue to. I do really like this thing. I would basically use it for the same stuff I would use the arcade stick for. Anything Capcom with those multi-button layouts. 2D games would generally be good. You have that certainty of the D-pad input with these buttons that feels just really, really, really good. Just like a really higher accuracy and validity with your directional inputs as well with this, which is like the best thing about them. And generally, I know I'm doing this a little more generally, but like this leverless that I picked up is a little higher quality than the arcade stick that I decided to grab, but I'm not holding that against it directly. I do think this thing is really, really cool though, and the arcade stick does have a little more, depending on which one you grab, but specific to the Mayflash in this that I grabbed, the Mayflash does have a little more versatility out of the gate. So I can use it on more things without spending extra money on a adapter dongle or something like that. But this has a lot more customization and personalization. Like if I don't like the button layout a certain game has on this, I can customize the buttons on this to a certain degree and make them work. Although by doing that, I could be sacrificing how good this feels to play with other games. So it's something to keep in mind there. But this does give you certainty in your inputs, and it gives you a lot of options for customization, personalization, and playing the way you want to play. So this is really, really cool. Really, really cool. We've got my sweet, sweet Octa with the micro switch inputs. This controller was like a game changer for me. Being someone who's largely played all of their games with a controller, this felt like a natural next step in terms of like not completely changing the way you play things like with a fight stick or a leverless, but this was the perfect balance to me of like familiar but better. The micro switches and how these buttons feel are incredible. Like even the D-pad and the stick feel amazing. This controller is perfect, and I mean perfect for Killer Instinct, where you're holding the controller right here and like being able to press these buttons here, and it's just perfect for combo breakers. It's just perfectly laid out for that, where you can do it with a regular controller. It's perfectly fine there with just like the trigger stuff for the strong, but I have major concerns about doing those combo breakers with a fight stick or a leverless. And so for that, I know that this is a perfect choice. I did also like it for, as I pointed out in my video where I reviewed the Fighting Commander Octa, it's also surprisingly good for Nintendo 64 games. So if you have a 6-button Nintendo 64 fighting game that you're trying to play on a emulator or something like that, you can easily customize the controls with an Octa to get it to feel like really good and really N64-like, because you have like A and B here, and these extra 4 buttons can mimic the C buttons from the N64. And it does just have the one stick and everything as well, so the layout is very familiar in that regard. It's kind of a modern N64 controller in a weird way, but it's really good for that too. And I think I played I think I played a little bit of like multiverses with this at some point as well. So like platform fighters would probably be a decent choice for as well. You got the stick for movement and D-pad for taunts, or however that system works, so it would work pretty well for those as well. I believe that's been tested. And then as for a regular controller, I feel a lot of fighting games I'm going to just stick with a controller for. My mainstays like Tekken and Soul Calibur, I feel like I'm just too used to how they play with a controller to go to them. Both would be doable with a, I think both would be doable with a fight stick or a leverless. I think especially Soul Calibur, because I do like that that access to like that block button on A, whereas with a controller that's like never made a whole lot of sense to me, but it made slightly more sense on an arcade stick or leverless with that. But I do think I'm just a little too used to how they play on a controller. And the big one to use with a controller, in my opinion, is Mortal Kombat, especially the modern ones. They just feel really, really suited to this controller layout. Like anything that has a button to block, like generally feels better with a controller, I think, especially Mortal Kombat having that like R2 or RT to block. It's very important just having that constantly accessible right here. As well as having your throws, cameo moves, and all that, side switching, that all just feels very familiar and just right up here. Whereas just making it get lost in the buttons of a fight stick or leverless like that just doesn't really feel the same. I do also especially love these, I mean the Octa kind of has it too, but these modern Xbox controllers where they have this circular D-pad. It's actually really, really good, and I feel a lot of validity with my inputs and things like that. A Grand Blue as well with a controller just makes a whole lot of sense to me, especially with all the special moves where it involves RB or R1 and a face button. Just it's a little easier to do that and just makes a lot of sense with a controller. The control style of that game is a little bit more casual friendly in general, so I do feel like part of that accommodates a controller. Plus, if you want to go to Grand Brews, it's kind of important to have two sticks and everything for that. So it feels a little better for that. The one thing that I may permanently switch over, because as I mentioned before, I was actually very pleasantly surprised with how Guilty Gear Strive worked and felt with a arcade stick or a leverless with that button layout. It felt surprisingly good. I have been doing a little bit more of that, and I might stick with that. It's not that controller never made sense or anything. It's just like I guess I was surprised by like how few buttons are needed for Strive. It's only a 5-button game, really. You got your 4 face buttons and the special that you use for the counters and or the burst and things like that. And so I found that pretty like surprisingly doable and viable there. Plus to do those slightly more complicated directional inputs and stuff that game requires, having the validity of like an arcade stick or like the leverless directional input as well. That helps with that as well. So that's another one that could potentially change, but I feel like those are maybe the only two. Maybe Capcom Fighting Collection as well, because I do have that. That's kind of the Capcom thing that I've quote-unquote stuck with. By which I mean I just play it every now and then. But that does feel like really, really good. And just as I mentioned, that connection of just like, hey, I'm playing the game kind of the way it was originally meant to be played in arcades and things like that, and that's cool. So I do like that connection. It does feel a little bit better. You make a little more sense of the buttons with the layout and everything, because they were never really designed for this. That wasn't the intention when they made like Darkstalkers in the 90s and things like that. So those are the big three, I would say. I have maybe permanently switched to Killer Instinct with the Octa. Capcom Fighting Collection with an arcade stick or leverless, and potentially Guilty Gear Strive with an arcade stick or leverless as well. Those are the things majorly impacted by these new controllers entering the fray. Everything else, probably sticking with a controller for now. There are more niche things that I could eventually look into and try out, and maybe they'll work. Haven't tried out every fighting game out there that there is, but like generally anything 2D. I mean, arcade stick or leverless is going to feel generally fine. It's more of a matter of the button layout and how comfortable that is for you, and how that plays to the game's strengths. That's the big thing for me. With certain controllers like the Hot 42 leverless that I have, you can customize the buttons to make it work better, but just think about, is this a layout that's going to help with one game and hurt your performance in every other game, or is it best for all of the games that you're trying to play? Or do you just want to play one game with it, and that's why you do it? But these are the things to think about. Again, it's all your own personal preference. I've given mine, but you'll likely have a completely different preference that's all your own, and that's perfectly fine. These controllers are literally made to give you options, and so whether or not you use them, it's your option, it's your choice, and it's money out of your wallet or purse. But anyway, enough rambling from me. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please hit a like or subscribe if you feel like it, and until next time, this is Sajin, and I'll see you later.